Hello, today we're having a look at the Disaster deck profile. So in case you haven't guessed it already, this deck is based on the Disaster villains from Season 1 of Future Card Buddyfight, and every single Disaster card is a common in Solar Strife, so it makes this deck super cheap to build, and I built this in mind coming with a budget idea, so most of the cards are below rare rarity. So yeah, really cheap, easy to build, and I'll talk about some other things of the deck while I go through it, and corresponding effects and such. So, as you see, our buddy is Kabbalah, aka Elf, and we'll talk about why he's our buddy later. Anyways, we've got 4 copies of Demon Lord of Demise Kiyoya. Now, Kiyoya's got some pretty good stats right there. 10,000 power, 10,000 defense with a critical of 2. But his cast stats is a bit expensive. You have to put a card from your field into the drop zone and pay 3 gauge. And if he's on the center, size of your disaster and left to right are reduced by 1, so you can have your 3 monsters on your field completely filling it up. And when he attacks, you have 7 or different disaster in your drop zone, you get to deal 7 damage to your opponent, 7 or more. So it doesn't have to be specifically 7. So it's a great card because you're attacking, you're getting that 2 critical damage, but on attack you're getting that 7 burn. So your opponent does have counterplay to have a shield in regard to that. And of course with the new rulings of Buddyfight Ace, you can have more than 1 counter per battle. So it does make the card a little bit weaker than before in X, even though this deck is really old and came out about a year or months ago in Japan. So it is a bit of old deck, but still really strong to be able to get that 7 burn damage and those 10 stats. So he's 4 copies of him, so we're making sure that we're getting him into our hand. And also because we want him to be really consistent and get him back, because we're relying on him for defense within the deck. So we have 4 copies of Elf right here, 2-2-0. 2-2-1, my mistake, size 1. When this card enters the field, you can pay 2 life, you search your deck for up to 1 construct or disaster from your deck into your drop zone, and shuffle your deck. Sorry, into hand. What am I thinking? Anyways, pay 2 life is great, and by the Buddy Call, if in case you somehow don't know what that is, check it out. Buddy Call is basically a special ability. When you call your buddy, you gain a life. So you're basically reducing that life cost to search for search for a disaster from the deck by 1. So you can search for an item, Kiyoya, Gremlin to mill, to Rumi to protect Kiyoya if we need it. So just a really solid card. We play 4 copies of that. So it makes it a lot more consistent. Everything else, you play 3 copies of it, just because the deck is smaller, and I find that 3x3 ratios works fine for the deck. So you're definitely being able to get disasters into your drop zone and getting it out right away to get as many different disasters in your drop zone as possible. So in each field, put the top 3 cards of your deck into the drop zone, and if there's a disaster among them, you get free gauge. And it's a 2-2-1 size 1 monster, so damaging that 2 crit is nice, and of course, we need those cards into the drop zone. No, not for gauge, for Kyo's effect. And do keep in mind with gauge, we are getting more effects and ability for the different disasters in drop zone. So we have Demon Lord's Puppet Terumi right here, which is a 3-1-3 size 1. And if another Wilder Stark or disaster would leave your field, you can put this card for field in the drop zone if you do that card remains in the field. So you can use this on your Kiyoya, of course, to protect him from effect destruction or by battle. And also can protect your item as well, your Demon Lord's Purgatory, Demon Lord Armor, which we'll have a look at later. So we have 3 copies of Death Dragon David right here. So David is a good card just because he's basically stopping your opponent from using any nullifies if you're attacking their monsters. And it's really solid because of that Sexual Strike as well. Again, he's kind of just there for getting to different disasters in drop zone, but he can be useful in some scenarios. We also have 3 copies of Demon Lord's Arm Sophia right here. Now, Sophia's great because she can leave basically immunity to card effects by destruction. Unfortunately, it doesn't protect Kiyoya, so he's very vulnerable as well. But it's great because you can protect your left and right from effect destruction, and sometimes that can be really useful, especially for cards like Terumi that are protecting your other cards as well. So it forces your opponent to go after them and attack them during their attack phase. So we've got Security Chief Shido right here. So it's a 4-10-2 410. Weird stats right there. But Shadow Dive, this card attack your opponent if you have monsters in your center. And when this card is attacked, you can choose a disaster monster other than Security Chief Shido and choose to attack the target to that card. So basically, essentially, you can redirect 2 attacks if you have 2 other disasters on your field. And again, that Shadow Dive can be really annoying to certain decks. So that can sometimes be helpful. So you can burn for 7 and then Shadow Dive for 2, for example, with Kiyoya and Shido's ability. We also have 3 copies of Demon Lord's Fang Kiyoya right here. Now, sorry, not Kiyoya, Ryuga. So 5-1-1, size 1. When this card attacks you, if you have another item, if you have an item or another disaster on your field, choosing to use one of the following 2, you either gain 2 life, or for the turn this card gets critical +2. So you have versatility in that effect. Gaining life is really nice, especially when you're paying life from Elf's effect. And of course, just being able to get that extra 3 critical, you can OTK your opponent, because even if they stop Kyo's effect, you burn them for 7, hit them for 3 damage, and that's 10 damage to take out their life. So we've got 3 copies of Vampire Shura. Now Shura also mills, it's basically the same ability as Gremlin, but you're able to mill your opponent's stick as well, which can ruin some of their combos, but sometimes also help them as well. So you do have to keep that in mind. And if you like, you can run more Gremlins or play with ratios. I just like Shura because he is able to mill the opponent's drop zone, and he basically guarantees you that gauge. But most of the time, I've tested it, and I've had no problems with Gremlin milling 3 and getting that Disaster into our drop zone engaging. You know, just in case, or if you like Shura, or if you have him lying around, because he's a common, easily attainable card. We also have Heatblade Joker right here, which is a 3/1/1, size 0. So activate a card from your field, instant soul of size 2, Demon Lord with no soul on your field, and basically gives that Demon Lord Soul Guard. So it's a great card because you're instantly giving it Soul Guard, basically at no cost because he has no call cost either. But because it's an act, your opponent does have counter timing to destroy Kiyoya, and that can be quite the problem. Okay, we also have one copy of Undying Wise King Countdown. Now, with this amazing artwork, it's a 4/1/1 size 0 monster. At the beginning of each player's attack phase, if this card's in your drop zone, you can pay 1 life to call it from the drop. And if another monster on your field be destroyed by your opponent's card, you can put this card from your field in the drop zone if you do remains on the field. So if any monster on your field be destroyed by card effects, if they're trying to take out Kiyoya so they don't have to attack him by battle, well, you can always have Countdown. And because it's the beginning of every single attack phase, you can keep paying 1 life to keep calling him back to protect Kiyoya, and also just attack for 1 damage as well, which is nice as well. We also have 3 copies, items. Purgatory Starsman Armor. Now, only 3 copies just because it's searchable from Kabbalah, and it's got good stats, or initially bad stats, but if you get different disasters in drop zone, its power and defense can go up, including its critical as well, and it can attack if you have a monster in your center, so you're getting double protection, essentially. And when it comes to attacking you directly, the fighter, your opponent needs to have power equal to or greater than defense. That's how it works with items, you know, transform, etc., ride. Basically, they have to get over 10k defense if you get every single disaster into your drop zone, every single different disaster, and that can be really powerful in certain scenarios, and just a really strong card. So 3 copies of that. We have 3 copies of Divine Protection of Shelsana right here. Now, Shelsana is a very widely available Dungeon World card. 1 gauge, nullify attack if it's an attack during your opponent's turn. Nullify it, and you gain a life. So it's a very simple, very versatile card, and it's great because you can use it on a closed center or open center deck, whichever one you prefer. And it's great in this scenario because it's just a really easy to obtain card. So we've got 2 copies of Obstinate Strength Bunny Call. Now, Bunny Call is a great card because it is a little bit pricey at 1 gauge, but because we can choose a card on field, it doesn't have to be monster. So we can also protect our item as well if your opponent tries to go for that. And also, it also protects from return to hand as well if you ever see that or ever encounter that. Again, you can play something else if you want, like another Shelsana or maybe another Heatblade Joker, Ultimate Buddy, which I'll talk about some other cards later. We also have Raised Castletown. So you only cancel this card if you have 2 more monsters in your field. Rest a monster in your opponent's field. You're basically always going to have 2 monsters in your field. It's just a free rest and stops a lot of attackers, which are annoying multi-attackers. So we also have Dangerous Fuse right here. Now, Dangerous Fuse is a really RNG card. It's not exactly the greatest and is really dependent on your luck, but you can mess with your opponent, and I feel like it really adds to the fun of the deck. Gauging 2 or draw 2, either one is really helpful, and it's also an uncommon, so pretty widely available, and you can find it online as well. So 3 copies. You also have 2 copies of Reset Button. Now, Reset Button is also another common card. It basically allows you to reset your gauge if you have 1 or more, and gauge 4, you shuffle back your gauge and gauge 4. So essentially, if you have 3 gauge, you spend all that gauge, go down to 1 gauge, and then use this and reset it and spend your gauge all over again. So it's really good in that kind of scenario, and it's also just, 4 gauge is just really solid for the deck, especially when Kiyoya has 3 gauge to call. We have Time Sale, so you only cast this card. You may cast this card without paying its cast cost if you have 3 life or less. My mistake. 2 gauge and 2 life, you get to draw 2 cards, and you only cast Time Sale once per turn. So again, especially when you're paying so much life, if you go down to low life and survive, you can use this for free draw 2. And also 2 gauge and 2 life is just a generic draw, and also helps you to break life into Oracle to Vow right here. Now, this is a really old card. It's basically a Dragonic Grimoire of Dungeon World. You can substitute other stuff as well, but I just like it because you're paying life with Kabbalah and Time Stone, and also you're taking damage. So if you're in that life, 5 life or less life range, discard your entire hand, draw 3 cards. So it is basically Dragonic Grimoire, and you can also use this if your hand is empty as well. So yeah, great card. Commandment of the Waterlord. This is just a meme card. I mean, the deck in itself is a meme, and it's just a really fun deck. But this card, you do need that 3 gauge, so Reset Button is essential, but you only cast this card when Demon Lord deals damage to your opponent. Stand a Demon Lord on your field, and that's great because if you fulfill the requirement for Kiyoya right here, when he attacks, he's burning 7, and because the card doesn't specify by battle or by card effects, you can stand him again and hit your opponent for another 7 damage burn, and of course the 2 critical damage, going to a total damage of 18, which is pretty powerful. And of course, you really need that aggro push, especially nowadays. Though Kiyoya is really weak, if you rest him, there's no way to stand him. And because he does not have the dungeon enemy attribute, you can't use G-Boy Flute on him, which is very annoying. But still a great card nonetheless, just because you can meme it, and it's hilarious to see your opponent's face when you use it. So, some other alternatives for the deck if you want to consider them. We have Retainer of the Demonic Dragon, Gildo, right here. Now, this is a card you get 4 of in the Golden Buddy Champion box. It's basically your budget Shura and Gremlin. Gremlin and Shura are obviously better because they're milling 3 cards of your deck and getting you Gauge as well. Gildo is when he's put in a drop zone, mill to engage. So you can also replace him to put him into the drop zone, not destroy, it's replace. But he's still going for field and drop zones, so you still meet the requirements of the card. So that's a widely available card right there. We have 4 copies of Golden Treasure Box. I don't like it because of Life Break, and I'm not playing too many high-sized monsters. You only cast it if you have 6 life or less. You put the top card of your deck into the drop zone, and you draw cards equal to the size of that card. If it's not a monster, you get a free Gauge and draw. So it's okay if you have it lying around. I guess you can try throwing it into the deck. I preferably just don't like it, and I don't feel like it's effective within the deck. We also have Ultimate Buddy. So obviously if you're going to be using this card, you want Kiyoya to be your buddy. But basically you pay 1 Gauge, put this in your Buddy Monster Soul. If it's in the Buddy Monster Soul, that monster gets Soul Guard and Power plus 5,000. Now that's great because you can get that extra power buff, which can be pretty helpful in some scenarios. And of course Soul Guard, so it's being put into the drop zone, returned from hand, whatever. But it is annoying because your opponent, again, just has counter timing as soon as you cast the spell. So if Kiyo is already on your field, then yeah, they can use a destruction spell in response to this. And there's a lot of destruction cards going around, especially with Ace. So I wouldn't really recommend it, but you know, if you want to try it out, and it's a really widely available common card. There's Gambit. I mean, what is there really to say about Gambit? You can keep reusing card effects like Gremlin. I wouldn't really recommend it because it's limited to 1 card in every deck now. And honestly, no one probably has it, and if you do, well, wow, you've been playing for Buddyfight for a long time. You're probably an OG. But if you got it, I guess you can throw it in, but I wouldn't really recommend it. For Summoning Shalsana, you only cast this card to type opponent's turn, counter nullify attack, and it's not a link attack. So first off, it's free, so you don't have to pay any Gauge in life, which is really nice. But the only problem is, especially because it's open center, sorry, close center, which is really nice. But if your opponent is link attacking, then it can't stop the attack. But it's really scenario. It really depends on the scenario, which is annoying, and that's why I don't like it. But it's you get 2 of it in the X-Dual chest, so it's really great for that. And, you know, try it on the deck. I just don't like it. But a lot of the cards nowadays, like Garger, can already go up to 10,000 power and hit your opponent. And then we have these cards, Obstruct and Loyalty. I don't really recommend this for the deck, especially if you're going to be playing casual, but I mean, I picked them up because they're good sideboard cards, and they can be really good against shutting down certain decks, especially Obstruct, because they basically shut down the draw engine completely, but again, it does shut it down for you as well on your turn. And a Loyalty is just great because you can stop shenanigans after your opponent spamming monster calls, and also, I guess, reducing damage and putting a soul from monster in field drop zone. You're probably never going to really be using that effect, but it's kind of just there, and yeah, Loyalty and Obstruct, basically the gods of Buddyfight right now. So yeah, that's basically it for the deck profile. I think it's a really fun deck, and sorry if it seemed to be a little bit of a rush. I just really wanted to get this upload out, and I had to re-record a few times because of other errors. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. Who really cares, honestly? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and just have a great time playing Buddyfight, and I definitely recommend getting this deck just because it's really cheap and widely available. So yeah, stay tuned for Buddyfight with this deck, and have a great day.